Welcome back, friends. This is the second video in a series where I'm working on this particular tonal realist landscape. In the last video, I laid down the underpainting, and in this video, we're going to proceed to the dead layer, which is what you see right now. The dead layer is essentially an earth tone layer performed after the underpainting with earth tones plus the addition of white. So let's begin. All right, you can see that I have the palette left over from my underpainting. It consists of the earth tones, the transparent earth tones, plus some Galca gel. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a little bit of another color, that's some raw umber. And what am I searching for? Looks like I'm going to beef up that transparent earth yellow a little bit more. See, it's winter, I'm wearing my cap. Yeah, let's put a big dollop of white on there. All right, now I mix up my palette. So I'm going to be mixing up every color. Start with the ivory black and white. I make a mid-tone. Basically just a half and half mixture. That lets me, I usually start with a half and half mixture of most pigments before as my initial mix. Just because that reminds me of the intensity of that pigment. Every pigment behaves a little bit, has a little more or less tinting power of white. So, if you mix initially with a half and half, that gives you kind of a rough idea. You can also test with a tiny bit of paint off to the side, just see how it plays out. But basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a mid-tone of each color, a dark and a light of each pigment. So across the top I have each of the colors, and then as I make the mid-tone, I put that about in the middle of the palette, go back up a little, mix up a dark, and then go back down to the other side, and you have a white. So that you'll see at the end, I'll show you the palette, and you'll see how it's organized. All right, so I'm going to skip ahead here. All right, so now I've gotten all the way across the palette pretty much. You can see I've got the grays, I've got the transparent reds mixed into three tones, and then I've got the yellows mixed in. Now I'm going to do the raw umbers kind of the same way. Wax on, wax off. You scrape it up, blend it down. Scrape it up, blend it back down. It's very relaxing. And I'm pretty much done. There's the palette. Everything's ready to go. So you can see it's all organized by tone, and it's ready to go. I don't have to think very much about what I'm going to be putting down. I'm able to act quickly and grab a brush, and it's ready to go. Now what you're about to see is going to probably shock you, but when I start laying in those tones of what I want in the sky and whatnot, it's going to look really, really dark. And that's because the underpainting is a guide. It's not an understanding of what the final image is going to look like. So watch right here. Look, I grabbed that dark one because that's where I want the clouds are. But you notice I'm covering the dark area of the yellow earth. Now, just like in the underpainting, I'm keeping my brushstrokes fairly random. The only goal is to cover the canvas or cover the surface. And as you can see, I tend to go against the grain a lot. But then sometimes I go with the grain, just, you know, it just kind of depends. At the end, though, I'm gonna knock it all down with a big brush and it'll to even out and carry the colors across and make it look like very loose and hazy and ready for the finishing stage because I haven't overcommitted to any hard edges. Oh, shoot. Now I'm laying in the ivory black with white in the lightest light in the areas that are most light. Then going back with midtones like you see right now. And the important thing at this point is I have all the tones actually mixed up on my palette, and so I can go back and forth between one and the other without much difficulty. It's just the brush is in my hand already, the palette is already mixed. That enables me to work quickly and also to respond to what's in my mind at that moment, whatever the painting needs. Now I've shifted over to the mixtures on my palette that are made with transparent earth red and laying in those portions of the midground. Now working the lightest light in the background. At this point, because I wiped that area off, now I'm replacing it with a mixture of white. So that's part of restoring the dead layer process. So I've wiped off a portion of the dead layer, but I have to put it back on. And now I've got my paper and I'm going to do tonking, which is to put a piece of paper across the entire canvas and just lightly press. This removes the excess, kind of presses some of it into the surface, takes off the excess paint, and then you'll be ready to blend afterwards. Now I've taken my big round bristle brush and giving it a once over in the darks. This is kind of knocking down the furrows of the oil paint, covering the white marks that are scratched from the bristles, and gives kind of blends those hard edges down so that, again, not overcommitting to any specific outline. And then after blending, it's always good to go back in, reintroduce more color into the foreground. Again, it's a back and forth process. Blend it out, reassert. Blend it out, reassert. Now here I'm using a mixture of raw sienna with white, still an earth tone, but raw sienna is actually an opaque pigment. So the opaque pigment works really great in the dead layer. I also have supplemented the transparent oxide reds in this palette with a little bit of raw sienna, or not raw sienna, but burnt sienna, also an opaque pigment. So now here, this is an older brush that I have. Look at it. It's an old Blick brush, and it's really, it's in pretty poor condition, but it's one of my favorite brushes because for whatever reason, it's gained a certain amount of, over time, um, flexibility in the bristles. And so I'm kind of going back and I'm fussing a little with some of the lightest lights. I'm almost transgressing into the finishing stage a little bit. Some of those edges are a little hard, but you'll see that while it's fun to kind of like go as far as you can in an area, eventually sometimes you do that, but then you knock it back down. And I've taken this about as far as I can for the dead layer. I'm blending it out, making sure that the brush strokes are blended down, no big furrows. Again, I don't want to be fighting that in the subsequent layers. I always feel like, you see these paintings where somebody worked and then they put a brush stroke over another, but you can still see the brush stroke below. I don't know. To me, I don't like that effect, and I would rather blend it down as much as I possibly can and save those master brush strokes towards the end. And as you see, I'm not afraid to get my fingers in it. And out comes the big brush. There we go. Wipe it off. One final big brush to blend it all out. Leave it kind of indistinct for the next layer. Ready to dry and receive the next layer. And that completes the dead layer. So here's, we begin, or we end where we began. This is the dead layer. In the next video, we'll proceed to the first color layer and see how far that takes us. In the meantime, hang on and you'll hear a word from our sponsor. Hi, my name's Chad Wooders and I'm here to show you another great arthritis life hack. This time I'm showing you the small cap opener by Fixotropic. It's a flat piece of metal. It has an angled opening to accommodate multiple size caps and sharp teeth that will bite into the plastic of the cap. Here I'm going to demonstrate it using a tube of oil paint. As you can see, it's old, it's crusty, pretty nasty overall. The cap is stuck on there very tightly, and for somebody who would have to pinch and twist at the same time and has arthritis, it would be very difficult to open. In this case, the metal cap opener, you just press it onto the cap, hold it firmly, and rotate the tube. That loosens the cap, all right, so that now it's much easier to open normally. Thank you very much. Bye.